This is a clip from the latest episode of the Game Football podcast from The Times. To listen to the full show, go to wherever you get your podcasts. Now, team, important starting point. This is a podcast. Listeners are regular. Alison, can we hear how you sound with your new croaky, month-long cold voice?
Yeah. Our doctor said I might have the 100-year cough. No, the 100-day cough. And then she looked at me and said, that's really nasty, that one.
You do. You've got a bit of the Phoebe Buffet about Friends about you with that kind of voice. So I think,
wobbly.
Yeah, it's all right. It'll be fine. But like the good boss I am, I knew that you had a cold, so I was like, right, let's send you to Arsenal Man United, the biggest game of the round so far. I mean, there's absolutely tons to talk about from this game. I was in the office yesterday. Let's not talk about the first half, because that was quite frankly dreadful. I was speaking to James Gabriel after the game, and he said he turned to you at half-time and said, this is dire, this is awful. What on earth are we going to write about? Thank God for that second half. My first question to you, as always, Manchester United winning on penalties. Was it the right result with them to win, do you think?
Well,
overall?
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. I mean, Arteta sat there and looked completely gobsmacked. How did we not win this? He said he couldn't believe it. I think they had 26 shots to United 7. They created quite a lot. So you mentioned the romance of the cup, Tom. This was supposed to be the glamour tie of the round. Two big clubs with great traditions in the competition, and big clubs anyway. And yet, to answer your question, the reason why it was the right result was United managed to establish themselves as some sort of romantic cup underdogs. Even their fans behaved like they were from Tamworth, as opposed to...
Well, Diogo Dola helped that, didn't he? With probably the worst second yellow card you've ever seen in your life.
Before he was sent off, and it was, we're down to 10 men, we have to be defensive and use our energy and guts and passion. Even before that point, United had established themselves as cup underdogs. And
I'd agree. I think there were moments after the red card where you forgot they were down to 10 men.
But do you not think that's part of what... that's what, Alison, your match report makes this point excellently, and arguably the biggest challenge they've got is now being at home on Thursday night to the worst team in the league, Southampton. But they've gone into the match against Liverpool. They found a formula. They played well. They played well adopting that role as the less good team, the underdog. Why not take that into a game at the Emirates, again, where you're not as good as the opposition?
Yeah, in the short term, it's absolutely fine. And Amarin's hit upon a formula there, because if you arrive midway through a season and don't have the preparation time, you've got to find a formula to make it work. But this is a slightly peculiar one, and it's only working, I think, because the fans are buying into it. And Amarin said afterwards, this was the game where I felt a real connection, special connection between us, the coaching staff, and the fans.
He also said he thought it was going to be our day from early on, didn't he? I was like, really,
yeah.
Ruben? Really?
Yeah, wasn't worried during the penalties because he knew they'd score them all. So he's obviously a romantic character, which works with the narrative of the FA Cup. And in some respects, you have to say, wow, take your hat off to him, because in the build-up to his appointment, the thing about United we all picked on was there's this huge club that spent so much money and has an amazing history, and it's embarrassing itself every week because it can't get the right players and the right system and the right manager. They can't make that work. What is wrong with this enormous entity? And maybe the only way through it is to accept that you're not very good for a while and then slowly build. But that takes, in your head, that takes such a leap of imagination if you're going to buy into it from the fan base point of view. And against Liverpool, they did that. And against Arsenal, they've done that. They have acted like we don't expect too much creatively, really. What we expect is attitude, embracing 3-4-3 rather than being scared of it. And there was
defending well as well.
They defended incredibly, but that was part of the acceptance. You often see that in a game where there's an underdog, and you think, how did they come through that? Actually, it was like every minute was the last minute. They defended like every minute was the last minute. It was last ditch, concentrated.
But is that not, are they not good foundations
to
build on then, if they're accepting this change in formation, which caused a lot of chaos in the opening matches of Amarim's time at the club? Getting a back three that seems to be working much better now, certainly, Gregor, in those last two games. Super Harry Maguire, that renaissance that I talked about, it looks to be in full swing. Another fantastic performance from him. Martinez played well despite getting booked early on, I thought. Delict doing you must have been delighted to see that when you were watching that back clearance off the line and a celebration in the goal as if he'd just scored the winner.
I love even more when he sort of heard across
the block.
The block, Declan Rice's shot.
He came out of absolutely nowhere. I've honestly never seen anything like it. We were all in the office going, how has he moved that quickly? There was a brilliant frame on the cameras on the TV as well where the shot was being lined up and he wasn't even in the frame.
No.
And then his leg just appears out of nowhere. But is that taking on Alisson's point, your reactions to that, but thinking about that back three and the fact that you've got your second choice goalkeeper coming in and being heroic, they're good things.
Yeah, look, we have to be talking about Manchester, despite everything Alisson's saying, which is all true. We have to be talking about them in positive terms after this, because when the deficit for so long has been, or the question mark has been, the things were like the attitude, the consistency, the commitment, even sort of the buy-in to what the manager's asking them to do. When that's been the biggest question mark, to see the last two performances, enormous spirit, enormous like levels of commitment, and like defending like warriors. That's a huge step forward for Manchester United. That also comes on to what you referenced then. It's going to be completely different in the games, the next few games. Like these are two games where it's okay, almost okay for Manchester United in their current shape to sit back and say, we know we're not quite at your level, and to play this way. It's going to be different in the weeks ahead. So part of what's been positive about them defensively too is they've kind of the way they've managed to not leave individuals exposed. You still fear for De Ligt, Maguire, Martinez to a lesser extent in kind of wide open spaces when they're compact and when they've got some of that's been really positive in terms of the organisation. Ugarte's like taken huge leaps forward. If he's going to be the guy like protecting them, he looks like a good fit. If he's got to be the guy who's the pivot, sort of dictating play, not so much. So there's still questions when Manchester United have to be the main protagonist in a game, but massive step forward for them in the last two games.
Hasn't the biggest question been like their squad quality though? And in this game we saw the disparity between a very good squad that Arsenal have, even though they've got injuries, and a squad that's not as good, and they had to play like you just said in that way. So this doesn't really, as positive as you can be about showing commitment and stuff, this doesn't move the dial, does it?
Well, I think seeing the team buy into what the managers asked them finally, it looked like there were some serious fears and worries that Amarim could be like doomed. Let's be honest, after his first 7 games or something, you thought he could be in real trouble here if he doesn't have the players at his disposal to play this way. You need to show some signs of life. You can't get dragged in, we're talking relegation battle. To see this reaction, it's undoubtedly positive. All those things are still true. Yes, that's why they had to play this way. But to see Manchester United playing with 10 men and being for an hour of the game
with purpose, it's the purpose that I think that is a big factor, isn't it? I remember reading Roy Keane's book when I was growing up, and he talked about how great their side was because they would always beat the opposition, no matter how good they were, or whether they were in for a fight or whether they were coming to defend. He said, we beat them at their own game. And then we exerted our brilliance, our class, our world-beating skill. You have to beat the team in front of you first. So actually establishing this spirit, this back three, Gregor's talking about defending as a team now rather than being exposed individually. We can't get carried away. As Paul Hurst said last week, we can't get carried away with this Manchester United club.
To be fair, they did win 2-2 at Anfield. So,
yeah. Here we go. We've got the Liverpool lads in.
No.
Anyway, but I think this is a huge step forward for Manchester United to go back to back with these two games. No, silence in the room. Silence in the room.
It's like it is. Is it a sticking plaster? That's the thing. Because Amarim said in his post match before he went on about knowing they were going to win and all that, he did say we have to control things better. We have to play better. We have to pass better. He's aware that they're not. These are important. This is playing the game. He's aware that they're not at it, but what they make up for it in terms of spirit and effort.
But as we talked a lot about Manchester City this season, and Gregor talking about confidence and how it can get into your mind, getting a good result at Anfield, a draw, Hamza, but a good result at Anfield against the mighty Liverpool, who were crap, by the way, and then getting a win against Arsenal, that gives you confidence, so that then they are feeling like a team. No, are we not? I think we're doing them a disservice here.
I think maybe the thing is, if it is a sticking plaster, that's okay, because at the moment they're not very good. But the question is, do we expect them to oscillate between bad performances and okay performances, decent performances? I think the answer is yes. And if that's the answer, then we shouldn't ever get too high or too low on Manchester United. So if they beat Arsenal and win on penalties in a game where Arsenal probably should have scored and all their chances, you go, okay, they probably got a little bit lucky here. They did show fight. Absolutely, that's great. It's fantastic that you've got a manager like Amorim who said, this is my idea and I want to stick to it. And I'll make tactical tweaks, but the idea I will stick to. Fantastic. But when it comes to praising the process and everything, you just have to go, okay, what we're seeing here doesn't necessarily look like they're definitely on the right path and nothing's going to go wrong from now on. There's probably going to be bits and bobs where the wheels come off slightly, and then
no doubt.
So then we just sort of go, okay, what can we say about the match? They're probably a bit lucky, but good fight, I guess.
Bit lucky. Bayendir's made two of the greatest penalty saves you'll see in a long time.
I don't think he has.
You don't think that's a good penalty save?
Greatest penalty saves.
You don't think they're good saves?
I saw Manuel Neuer save like Ronaldo and Kaká's penalties.
Just to be clear, you don't think they're
back.
good saves. That's not a good penalty
save.
save.
But you said one of the best I've ever seen.
Yeah,
I saw
come
Neuer
on, I'm
save
trying to
Kaká
build
and
them up.
Ronaldo
I'm trying
in
to
a
build them
Champions
up. We've
League.
got
Was it
Manchester
semi or
United
quarter?
getting a great draw at Anfield and then beating Arsenal with 10 men for most of the game. And we've got two of you going, well, they're doing all right. Don't get carried away. It's a second choice keeper.
Then maybe instead we should be saying, is this Man United reborn? Reborn as a deeply average club, accepting it and then starting again.
We're not getting into the club part. We know the club aspect. We know Ineos. I'm just talking about Ruben Amorim and the players that he's got and what they did on the pitch yesterday. That's all I want to talk about.
All right, So they didn't defend well enough to necessitate the keeper not making saves. So the keeper had to make saves because they didn't defend well enough.
He made two
Congratulations,
very good
goalkeeper,
penalty saves
for bailing your team out.
Two
That's
very
your
good
job.
penalty saves.
I'm not going to sort of go over the top here. Who was actually good for Manchester United?
Who was good?
Yeah. He was like, whoa, that was sick.
So just to be clear, Hamza,
Beyond
a couple of
Bayer,
good saves and two penalty saves. The first Premier League goalkeeper on record to save both a penalty in normal time and a penalty shootout doesn't qualify as a good performance.
It's a good performance.
Okay, great. Thanks.
It's not like best I've ever seen, though, is it?
Who was good? Maguire was brilliant. Maguire was
heroic,
brilliant.
Absolutely fantastic. I am so here for the rebirth of Harry Maguire. The guy has been through absolute misery at that club. Could have left. Eric Ten Hag tried to ship him out loads of times. He's like, no, I'm staying. He's literally the subject. Hamza, you talked at the start of the season about meme players. There's no greater meme player than Harry Maguire.
They gave up 3.2 XG. This is not some great defensive performance.
You don't think they defended well? They had
bailed
10 men for
out.
most of the game.
Yeah. Arsenal had 10 men at the Emirates, the Etihad, right? They didn't give anything away.
We're not talking about that game.
That's a proper
We're talking
defensive
about this
performance.
Game. So
that's a proper defensive
right, 1 minute
performance.
ago, the keeper's not had a good game.
He had a good game. No, he had a good game. He didn't have a all-timer game. Is what you suggested. What did you say? Best.
I was trying to give them some hype because of Bennett. We're literally pouring cold water all over one of the great spirited FA Cup.
They've gone through to the next round. I'm just trying to give Arsenal their credit because they played quite well and they've just been. Everyone's criticised them really, really harshly.
We've not even got onto Arsenal yet. Anyway, I just wanted to also show a little bit. I thought I was going to have to, be embarrassed on my part for some of my views on Manchester United before this game because I tweeted about Altay Bayendir being chosen ahead of Andrea Onana. This is madness, isn't it? Finally get a decent performance with an 11 that looks your strongest, and you swap your keeper for your next massive game. See, I'm.
I mean, he can't kick it. You can't kick it.
Christ,
year 9.
This is unbelievable.
No, Tom, I'm with you. I mean, we've got to praise Christ. Some of the drivel we've seen from Manchester United. We have to praise this.
Where's the heart? Where's the fight? Where's the purpose? It's all right there. Kai Havertz is diving in their box. They're giving it big licks. Harry Maguire's calling him a Everyone's kicking off. It's fantastic. This is what Man United fans have wanted. They've gone all the way to London with rail replacement buses and all that crap, and they've finally got a performance. And we're sat here going, "It's all right. Did a couple of decent saves. Yeah, fine. Loads of XG. Come on, for God's sake."
They had no XG. It's 0.27.
Oh, shut up about XG, Hamza. I think when they play
4 shots on target, 2 big chances.
No XG, and they scored the best goal of the game.
They're
That
playing
goal
for
by
an hour.
Bruno Fernandes is a brilliant finish.
To win the game,
like I said, if you compare a really good performance with 10 men, the Arsenal one at the Etihad, to this one, it is night and day. One was a fantastic defensive effort where they suppressed the quality of the shots and they didn't give their opponents anything, right? This one was one where the attacking team got loads of chances. Loads. And if Kai Havertz could hit the target, we'd be saying, what a fantastic performance by Arsenal. Manchester United are nowhere near the level. Honestly, it could have easily been 4 goals for Arsenal.
If Arsenal had won this game 3-1, I still think we'd have a lot to praise for Manchester United.
I doubt it. I really doubt it. And I think it's worth people listening and considering the alternative. If Arsenal hit the targets with the chances that they had, you go, oh, they dismantled Manchester United.
In order to have that narrative, you do actually have to put the ball in the net.
Which is what I said. If Kai Havertz could hit the target, that's what we'd say. That's why I'm considering the alternative. And given strikers should be hit the target, well,
he can't. And Bruno Fernandes can hit a ball on the bounce that starts outside the post, goes round a defender and in the back of the net.
That's why he's paid
in the blink of an eye.
£350,000 a week. And he's
Kai
the captain.
Havertz is paid
he's
what? 10 grand a week? Come on.
He's also on around 300, isn't he?
Come on. Right, anyway, let's talk about Arsenal then, seeing as Hamza wants to say it was the greatest performance in the history of the world. Alison, Arsenal, this season, again, another stutter, another blip, I would say. No one has been more complimentary about Mikel Arteta, I'd say, consistently on this podcast than me, but it's not helpful for the narrative around him, is it, when he loses these kind of games, loses against Newcastle in the first round of the semi-final. It doesn't help him with his doubters, does it, about not being able to get over the line?
Yeah, and there's something about what if you were to love Arsenal, what would you have wanted from the last 2 games? Is your mindset, and I say this because I think it is reflected on the pitch and from Arteta himself. You could make the case that the match against Newcastle in the semi-final first leg of the Carabao Cup and this match against Man United in the 3rd round of the FA Cup are more important than the league results, because if you really step back from it, it's looking quite unlikely that they're going to win the league.
Yeah.
Right? But it's possible. But how do you work that out in terms of rotation, attitude, response, mood, vibe in those 2 games? And it feels as if Arteta is putting more of his mental capacity still into this idea. The league should be ours. The league should be ours. This is what I'm heading towards. Come on, the trajectory is 2 second-place finishes. It's got to be now. Or in fact, what he does need is the joy of a cup win. And they're undoubtedly one of the most talented teams in Europe at the moment. They should be breezing through at home. They're at home against Newcastle, who have a rotten record in cup competitions, and against Man United, who are having a rotten decade. So it's weird to me that Arteta there was a restraint to him, that he wasn't all out to get to the final of the Carabao Cup, to keep going in the FA Cup, because it's the first cup he won as a manager. You think it would matter more to him. There's something, you can almost feel the concern when you walk through the doors there, that they haven't quite got the depth or the personnel they need to do one or the other, which is to win a trophy or really put pressure on so that it's tight at the end of the season.
Yeah, I just feel like there's also a sort of sense that they're stepping backwards a bit when Martinelli, Jesus, Jorginho, like I know there's some of these players are because of injuries and rotation, but they're stepping back a bit in time when they need to be moving forward, and part of that is it's beefing up their front line. It's too light, and there's been a sort of mini industry about defending Kai Havertz, it seems, among Arsenal fans, a bit like the Darwin Núñez with Liverpool. Like, it's just glaringly obvious that he's not the level they need to compete for silverware on a regular basis, I think. So Arsenal, it feels, as I say, the biggest thing for me is it feels like you always need to be moving forward. You always need to be taking steps forward every season. That's in terms of like the way the squad's set up and who bring in new players, and also in the way that the play evolves. And I feel like Arsenal have taken a bit of a step backwards on both those counts.
Hamza, your view on Arsenal? You were praising them before for their for their excellent performances elsewhere
I'm going to say
defensively.
praise them for their XG.
I wasn't going to say that. I wasn't going to get into that again. But your views on some of the points the guys made about Arsenal and about Kai Havertz and about whether this, Greg is saying they're slightly going backwards almost. I'm saying they're stuttering. Greg is saying they're almost going backwards.
If you're not going forwards, you're going backwards.
Relative to everyone else, yeah, no, it's a fair point. I think the ongoing question as well is about like specifically Havertz and whether they should get a new striker in. But it's a difficult position because, as Alisson just said, this could be a season where they can't close. What's the gap now? 6 points. So with a game in hand, it could be 9. There was a point last week or the week before where it could have been 11, potentially 11. It would have been 8 points then, whatever, because they drew. When you've got a situation like that, you've got to think about from not the manager's perspective, but from the board and sporting director perspective. You go, okay, we could sign a striker here, but it's not really going to move the dial on the team. As in, it's a lot of points to catch up on. We could go for the Champions League. The League Cup's going to be a hard sell. So you just go, we probably, at this point, with all the injuries, you just sort of go, okay, this is what we can do this season. And we think about what we can do for the following season. Really give that the beans. Sign the striker that improves the level of the team, that moves it beyond what it is now.
Do you think Mikel Arteta will get that time, though? Because my point to Alisson was that, he won the FA Cup when he first came in, as he would say, 3 trophies with his charity shields as well. But a lot of, as to Alisson's point, and we all did it on this podcast after the last 2 seasons where they first, oh my God, Arsenal might win the league. And then last season, oh my God, Arsenal nearly won the league. Everyone thought they'd win it this season, and maybe including, as to Alisson's point, Mikel Arteta as well. Does he get that time in modern football that you're referring to of this season with injuries and stuff? And you go, okay, will Arsenal fans be all right with, finishing second, knocked out of the FA Cup, knocked out of the EFL Cup, and maybe, they're doing brilliantly in the Champions League, but no guarantees there. Will he get that time?
Well, I don't know what Arsenal fans, how they'll react. There's always some sort of overreaction, especially when you lose to a big rival.
Yeah.
You're always going to be really upset about that. And I mean, winning at St James's Park is very, very difficult. But 2-0, could they get to 2-2 and then penalty? Yeah, probably, possibly. Without Saka, that's going to be hard, but maybe they could. So the season isn't necessarily over. They can still go for it in the Champions League. I think the board generally are supportive of Arteta. I think if they went for the rest of the season, let's say they finished second, and they got to the quarterfinals or the semi-finals of the Champions League, and they went out of both cups. That's fine.
Yeah. No, listen, I don't
think that most Arsenal fans would even hold Arteta sort of culpable for this stagnation, if you want to say, or going backwards. I'd say it's like overall they've not taken their eye off the ball, but they've not taken the steps forward that the team would have hoped and supported him. I mean, he's involved in it. We know about his power and his sort of strength in the football club now. So he's involved and he will sign off any big signing, but it's not down to Arteta alone. I'm sure it's like, Martin Samuel wrote about why don't they go out and sign Ollie Watkins. I don't think they're ever going to do that because he's 29 and he'd cost upwards of 50 million quid. The way Arsenal have got to this point is by signing players who have potential to be a big part of their future, like for over a long period of time. And I don't see someone like Watkins being that guy.
I think the difficult thing is here, when you get to a very good level, you've got to then sign players that actually improve your level. So I think what they did largely in the summer was bring in players that are of the level of the team. So Mourinho's a good player, but he doesn't add something to it. He doesn't take a team that's close to winning the title to winning the title.
Yeah.
He keeps them at that level, like Gregor said. I think that is quite difficult to do. I mean, how do you if you want to get a striker in, there are a few players that are of the goal-scoring level. Take Isak, he's very expensive. He's at a rival. It's going to be difficult to do. Someone like Sesko looks very attractive, but again, I haven't watched him too much, but one of the questions will be is, if you bring someone like Sesko into the team, and he might be able to do this, will he be able to defend and play without possession the same way that Havertz does, or Jesus? And if he doesn't, what effect does that have on the team as a whole? Because that's how you look at it. That's what makes them so good in the first place, that they're robust, they're great at pressing, they're hard to score against. So there's trade-offs everywhere, and it's very hard to actually take that next... move to that next level, especially with signings. I think that's maybe the key here. That and Arteta learning on the job.
The other thing I'd say is that with Saka out, like the sort of there's been periods in Arsenal's recent history where Havertz playing up front has not been a problem. When Trossard is firing all cylinders, when Saka is doing what Saka does, when Declan Rice was being that guy who took the kind of Granit Xhaka role and he was playing much more advanced from the sort of left side of midfield and was really contributing in an attacking sense. When all those things aren't happening around him, then he's kind of like a bit of a totem for their lack of bite or firepower. But it's still the truth.
Yeah.
You know, there's some players like an Isak, for example, who can create things for himself, score goals from nothing. Like, I just think fundamentally what Hamza said is right. They've not taken the players they've brought in as well. Have not taken them forward. It's always been like these guys should be sort of like add a bit more depth and backup for our main guys who are still Odegaard and Saka. And when they're not firing or fit, they're in trouble.
Yeah.
And they've been relying. I know we've talked about it a lot, but it's more relevant today than it has been. They've been so reliant on their set pieces, and that was to their detriment, actually.
Another thing Manchester United did well, but anyway.
Yeah, the set piece takers were injured though, right? Yeah. Saka and Waneri are the best in swinging takers.
No, right.
Any set piece, not just corners.
Right
they spent a long time over them. I mean, it got ridiculous. There were little summit meetings going on for every set piece.
Couldn't get past Harry Maguire. That's why.
Did you see them run the routine to the same one that Rice scored last season against Manchester United? And it went to Martinelli at the back post, and it was just like 6 inches too high for him, and he just couldn't control it. It went out, but 6 inches lower.
But they were overthinking it. They've hit peak set piece.
Form,
and now it's going.
I don't know how we've managed to spend longer talking about Arsenal than Man United
because they were better. Game. That's why they were better.
They lost.
They weren't in real life terms, Hamza.
They lost
from where they've both come from. They weren't. This was a big win for Man United.
Thank you, Gregor. Thank God for that. Speaking of overthinking, Alison, you were overthinking. One thing maybe we won't agree on. Who knows? What a treat! What an absolute joy it has been to have a weekend with no bloody VAR. Honestly, Alison, I don't know what you thought. Being at the game.
No, this is now getting a problem.
No, wait. I was just in the office. People were arguing over, like, oh, Ugarte's, has he put his head in there? Havertz, he's a dive or his arm comes out.
Who cares?
Could you imagine how long they would have taken to work out whether Harry Maguire had brushed enough of the body of Kai Havertz? Shut up, who cares? Let's get on with the bloody game. That honestly made it such a wonderful spectacle. And maybe I'm saying that as Mr. Football League, but
I agree with you.
Wonderful.
And when you do go to a game or watch a game where there's no VAR, it does lift. You feel lighter in yourself.
Is the crowd different?
It's a lovely thing.
Is the crowd different because they're not getting that like, let's look at the screen, let's look at the screen.
The crowd, there's less tension in the crowd, but we've gone too far now. So that when you don't have VAR, I think it affects refereeing performances because the system now is that the referees are so used to knowing they've got VAR as their backup that they can make decisions they never used to make, knowing that if it's a key decision like a penalty or a red card, they'll be allowed to at least look at it, or someone in their ear will say, got that right, got that wrong. And now it's I felt madly the referee in this game was sort of overemphasising his body language and the way he looked. When for the penalty that was given against Man United, he actually sort of knelt a little bit and leaned his head into the area as if to say to the world, I'm looking at this as just like 8 cameras would, I can see really clearly. He couldn't see because he was behind contact and he couldn't see. But he was trying to give off this image of, don't worry, there's no VAR, I know what I'm doing. But actually, in doing that, he was reminding everyone, there isn't VAR, and what he does now will stick. And I agree with you, because we've gone down the road of on-field decisions get precedence where they didn't used to have. I'm talking too much, so my voice is going to go. But there would have been a bit of a long debate about it, Tom, and we can all do without that. But I think referees have now shifted to a new universe where they know they've got VAR and they're not quite. When it does work, you see, games without VAR is when you've got referees that have had a lot of experience of late with no VAR. But when it's a referee.
Let's keep giving them that experience, though.
Most of the time, as VAR, I don't think they're quite I don't think they can quite get their
But
heads around it now.
I also think it was a weekend. I'm being slightly silly, and obviously there's lots of Ireland fans. Thierry Henry, the handball. That's why we've got VAR, etc. But there was it was a weekend of these little moments that would have just took hours. In the Aston Villa West Ham game as well, with that kind of corner incident where, is it a foul? And he's gone down. It's like, sure, who cares? No, and you didn't actually get the sense that the fans who were wronged in those incidents were particularly angry about it.
You might not care, but I imagine, they did.
Honestly, I've got a friend who is a West Ham fan and who was wronged, but didn't mention it.
I still can't believe that last week you're on about that Bergvall yellow card, and honestly I couldn't believe that.
Here they come.
No, because what happened was you had a team that should have been reduced to 10, and they had a +1. And the team that should have had 11 men were reduced to 10 because the guy was off the pitch.
Reds
so they had a -1. So you had a 2-player difference.
Fade out, Neil.
It was ridiculous.
Fade out, Neil. Fade out, Neil.
Not
only have we managed to slag Manchester United off for beating Arsenal with 10 men, we've still managed to talk about Liverpool in this half of the show. Unbelievable scenes. Congratulations to Manchester United. Congratulations to Altay Bayendire with a brilliant performance in goal. Also, definitely better than David Raya, who managed to dive so far out of his goal the wrong way that he didn't get anywhere near the ball. But yeah, Arsenal still the best team in that game.